All right, Jabosai, good morning. Let us begin. We're actually gonna skip a little bit to Os Samich Vav in Tzidkas HaTzaddik. I sent it out last night on the WhatsApp chat, the PDF, and we're gonna spend the Mirza Hashem the next 2 mornings focusing on Samich Vav. Not that Samich is not important. We began Samich yesterday. We got the essence of Samich. The Rebbe explains some of his concepts about a willingness to lay down one's life if one is not going to live a life in conformance with Ratzon Hashem. So we discussed that already. So I'll move on to Samich Vav, because here the Rebbe really highlights something that I think is just fascinatingly amazing. So the Rebbe says as follows. I'm on page Kuf Samich Aleph, in the Be'uri HaChasidus, the bottom left-hand column. So the Rebbe says as follows. Lamod betfila, samich vav. Lamod betfila al Hashem yisbarach. Tzarich ha'adam l'chol davar hanitzrach lo. A person requires. Thank you so much, Harry. Thank you. A person requires tefillah. Thank you again. A person requires tefillah for everything. Now, literally translated, it means to stand in prayer before Hashem is necessary for everything for which a person requires. Now, what does this mean? V'zeh. For example, even if HaKadosh Baruch Hu already ordained or decreed that a certain thing is in fact going to materialize or unfold, so let's say there's a gzera, there's a decree, a good decree. HaKadosh Baruch Hu has decided that I'm going to benefit or I'm going to be blessed in a particular way. B'chol zos tzarich ha'adam le'espalel shachin kach yadavar. A person still needs to daven that the bracha will come to fruition, that the bracha will be actualized in the way in which HaKadosh Baruch Hu intended it. We'll say a very fascinating idea. We don't yet know why this is, but the Rebbe is introducing us to the koach hatfilah, that bracha cannot come about in this world without prayer. And even if something is ordained from the Ribbono Shel Olam to happen in a particular way, which is beneficial to me, that benefit will not materialize, that benefit will not actualize if not preceded by prayer. So just to show you where the Rebbe gets this from, if you take a look at footnote Reish Lamed Dalid, so here the footnote actually quotes, which really is the biblical makar, the biblical source for this idea. The Rebbe writes, Kimo shenemar, v'chol siach hasoda terem yeh ba'aretz, v'chol eisiv hasoda terem yitzmach, Kilohimtir Hashem Elokim ala aretz va'adam. If you turn the pages, va'adam ein la'avodes ha'adama. So the pasuk literally reads as follows: that before any of the vegetation or herbage or grass began to grow, why didn't it grow? Because Hashem had not yet brought rain. That's why. So remember again, the Torah is painting the image that all of the necessary vegetation was literally sitting right beneath the top of the ground, ready to come out. Why didn't it come out? Because the HaKadosh Baruch Hu did not yet bring rain. Why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu not yet bring rain? Because again, va'adam ayin la'avodas hadama. For there was no man to yet go ahead and work the earth. Human beings were not yet created. Man was not, humans weren't created. So there was no one to work the earth. And Rashi says, this is so beautiful, Rashi says, Ubirashi, Adayin lo haya ba'aretz kishe nigmara brias ha'olam b'shishi kodem shnivra adam, v'chal isev asada lo tzamach, v'lama, kilo himter. Again, Rashi says, so why was there no vegetation? Because Baruch Hu didn't cause it to rain. Ayin, why didn't Hashem cause it to rain? U'matan lo himter, lefi sha'adam ayin la'avodas ha'adama, ve'in makir b'tavasan shal geshamim. Just finish reading the footnote. Ukisheba adam biyada shem tzarich li'olam hispalel aleihem. Ultimately, again, so Rashi explains, because there was no human being to daven for the rain. It was only once Adam and Chava are on the earth and they're able to daven for the rain that the rain comes. So the Rebbe, so we'll say, isn't this incredible? The vegetation is there. It's sitting there right beneath the top of the soil. It's all there. Chosh Baruch Hu has a plan. The plan is to bring forth the vegetation, but yet Chosh Baruch Hu does not bring it forth until someone is there to daven. So the Rebbe therefore goes ahead and essentially builds a philosophical or theological construct around this idea. What do you see? That even if the Ribono Shel Olam is ready and poised to give me bracha, bracha does not materialize in this world unless it is preceded by tefillah. Tefillah is the necessity to bring about divine blessing. Now, let's pause for a moment. Let's pause for a moment and analyze it, at least from the perspective of Bereshis. Because from Bereshis we can begin to ask ourselves, why is that? Why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu bring rain until ultimately man was there to go ahead and daven for it? What's the whole point of a miracle? What's the whole point of bracha? The whole point of bracha is one of the ways in which we forge a connection with the Ribono Shel Olam. That's one of the ways. So, right, the whole everything that happens, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives me my health, He gives me parnas, He gives me a family, He gives me these things. And my goal is to see, you know what, these things don't just happen by themselves. They don't just occur. Even if I put in effort, these things materialize only with incredible divine intercession, only with HaKadosh Baruch Hu's involvement. Tefillah is the way that I recognize the Ribono Shel Olam's involvement in both what we'll call the miraculous and the mundane aspects of life. Without prayer, I could just as easily assume that these things occur on their own. With tefillah, I recognize that the things that I have in life are only because of the Ribono Shel Olam. Therefore, says Reb Tzaddik, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not going to bring about bracha, even if He's ready to, without tefillah. Because then the bracha doesn't accomplish what it's supposed to accomplish. But let's say, isn't this the yesod in life? To recognize that everything I have is only because of the Ribono Shel Olam. So if there's no tefillah, which represents the theological awareness of this yesod, then at the end of the day, there's no bracha. There's no bracha. Then what's the point? What's the point? Everything HaKadosh Baruch Hu does is to create an awareness of my involvement in His life. It's such a profound yesod. He goes on, he says, L'raya al kach, he gives an example of this. Halotira be'elio. He goes over by Eliyahu Hanavi. Listen to this. Page Kuf Samech Beis. Shekvar amar lo Hashem Yisparach, lech hira'eh el achov, ve'etna mater al pnei ha'adama. So remember, we'll say this refers to the episode of Malachim Aleph, where Eliyahu, interestingly enough, decided on his own to withhold the rain. There's a whole discussion in general about Eliyahu Hanavi deciding to withhold rain, even though the Gemara says that the Maftech Shel Geshamim, the key for rain, is something which is held onto by HaKadosh Baruch Hu exclusively, and He does not go ahead and hand it out to anyone. Okay, Eliyahu Hanavi got it. He also got the key to Tchias HaMesim. That's a different story. In any event, so what happens? HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells Eliyahu Hanavi, go to Achav. Achav was the king. The reason Eliyahu withheld the rain was because of the ongoing evil perpetrated by Achav and his wife Izebel. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to Eliyahu, go to Achav, it's going to rain. It's going to rain. Vetna matar. Ve'afapike nemer achakach. Sha'ala l'rosh ha'karmel. Vayikar artza vayasem panav ben birkov. Shenishtateach la'aretz. V'sham panav ben birkov l'spal la'matar. Shehirba b'tfila ad sheba geshem. And yet what does the Navi say? Eliyahu Navi goes up to Har Carmel, and what does he do? He davens. Davens. Why are you davening? Why are you davening? At the end of the day, HaKadosh Baruch Hu told you that the rain is going to come. Why is there a need for tefillah at all? Elamai, afapi shehuftach mipri HaKadosh Baruch Hu sheyitin matar, hari shegam la'achar shenigza min hashamayim adayin tzarach lispalel shi'avo hadavar. You see from here, says Reb Tzaddik, that's which we were saying before. Even if something is divinely ordained to happen for you in a positive way, it is only through the power of prayer that the bracha, that the blessing ultimately is materialized. Such an incredible way. So I will say, think about this for just a moment. You know what this means? According to Reb Tzaddik, it means that there could be a whole storehouse of blessing that is waiting for each of us that we have not yet received because we haven't properly utilized the power of prayer, the koach hatfilah, which is such an incredible yesod. See, in our theological constructs, we often assume if HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to give me something, He's going to give it to me. He's going to give it to me. Okay, of course, I have to be worthy of it, but once I'm quote unquote worthy, then ultimately I'll receive it. And Tzaddik says it's not necessarily true. There's a din in tefillah. There's a din in tefillah. I could have all the requisite merits, right? I could have all the personal piety, but without tefillah, the brachos don't come. Without tefillah, the brachos don't come. And again, the reason for that is because the brachos are only meaningful if I recognize they come from Hashem. The brachos are only meaningful if they're used to build a bond, used to build a relationship between myself and my Creator. How is that relationship? How is that bond built? That's prayer. That's tefillah. Because tefillah is when I articulate and express everything I have in this world is from you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So therefore, says Reb Tzaddik, even if HaKadosh Baruch Hu promises it, ultimately the blessing in life only materialize if first it preceded ultimately by prayer. Right? So we'll stop over here for today. We'll Merit Hashem pick up. We'll spend one more day with this Sif tomorrow. Shkoyach. It's okay. It's a good kasha. That's the general tzaddik veralo, rasho v'tovlo discussion. So that's always the theological outlier.